Welcome, everybody. We are live. Give me just 1 second to go live on Instagram here. We're live on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, X. Let's see, Instagram. Give it a second. Yep, live on Instagram as well. Okay. Welcome back, everyone. I haven't done one of these in a little while, and I really need to do these more often. This is a subject that I've been wanting to do for a while now. So, our topic today is the seven trumpets of Revelation. So, we're talking in particular about Revelation chapter 8 through 11, the seven trumpets of Revelation, and immigration. How do these two go together? Have you ever really wanted to study the seven trumpets of Revelation? Have you tried to read that and were just completely lost? One of the biggest problems people have is they read these chapters and they take it completely literally. And they come up with all kinds of wild conclusions. I'm going to break down just the basics of Revelation, chapters 8 through 11, the seven trumpets. I'm not going to go through a detailed Bible study like I would do on my YouTube channel, where I go into prophecy seminars. Check those out, by the way, if you haven't gotten a chance to. On YouTube, I have a playlist or multiple playlists where I just go through Bible prophecy in depth. One of the ones I'd like to recommend is The New World Order and Bible Prophecy. Find that on my YouTube. Find the playlist, The New World Order and Bible Prophecy. I just finished the series, 9-part series. So go check that out. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. In fact, do that on all these platforms, please. It really helps. Facebook, Instagram, X, Rumble, and YouTube. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. But I'm not going to go into a detailed Bible study on the seven trumpets of Revelation today. What I'm going to do is give you a big picture. I'm going to give you the big picture, just a general interpretation. So it'll be kind of a quick version. I'll give you, some references if you want to go into detail where you can follow up later on. But today I just want to do the big picture, and I want to show you how this applies to immigration. In particular, I'm talking about the flood of third world immigrants into Western countries. How does that relate to the seven trumpets of Revelation? I think that's interesting. How do those two things go together? I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how they are intricately intertwined. So you're going to need your Bible as usual. Welcome to this episode of Prophecy and Politics. This will also be posted as a podcast later on Apple and Spotify. So make sure to subscribe to the podcast there as well and check us out there. So, the seven trumpets of Revelation and immigration. Let's start with the big picture on immigration, and then we'll come back and we'll look at the big picture on the seven trumpets. Then we'll go into more detail. What's going on with immigration and Western countries today? It's in the news a lot, right? You're hearing a lot about immigration because of Trump's crackdowns. There's a lot of ICE protests. A lot of it is just very public. It's not, the policies aren't insanely different than they were as far as deportations under previous presidents. The border's different, but the policies is, as far as doing deportations, a lot of it is just more highly publicized. So you're seeing it in the media more, but the numbers, the amount of people who are being removed, not all that crazy different than under, let's say, President Biden or Obama. But we know that the news media has an agenda. And so it is a big story. And there's all these protests, all these anti-ICE protests all over the country. So it's a major story. But what the angle I want to look at is the fact that immigration and mass immigration from third world countries in particular today is something where Western countries are being flooded. And just to give you an example, of the results of this, the most popular baby name in London is Muhammad. Think about that for a second. I mean, that should like end the discussion right there. If you think, oh well, immigration, no big deal. What are you talking about? Immigration has always happened. No, no, no. This is different. I saw a stat, and I don't have the numbers up in front of me perfectly right now, but the general idea was over the last few decades, the amount of immigrants into America has exceeded what came in through the Ellis Island era, which we think of the Ellis Island era historically as, this just boatload after boatload and just waves and mass lines of people coming in to America through places like Ellis Island. And while that's true, we've surpassed that in recent decades. Like and it's not as publicized, and you don't see like the lines at a place like Ellis Island, so you don't think but it's happening. Places like London, places, European Western nations and America, the demographics are being radically changed. Take Canada, for example. You look at the number of immigrants, foreign born percentage of the population in Canada, what it was historically to what it is today. And the chart looks like it's like one of those exponential charts where it just starts off slow and then it starts to go up, and then the charts, it's facing vertical. It's going straight up. The amount of people who are being relocated from countries like India and Pakistan, Middle Eastern countries, West, or not just West, African countries, even, Asian countries, the amount of people that are coming in particular from third world countries into Western nations, it's like an invasion. And we're very familiar with this in America when it comes to, the flood of immigrants through the southern border. But it's not just that. They're coming in waves through the visa programs, through things like from countries like India, and entire industries are being taken over. And so the landscape of the countries are different. And just anecdotally, all you have to do to know how things have changed so much in America and Western countries, but in America, I'll give you this example. Just go to any small hotel in the US. Random, middle of the country, doesn't matter, coastal city, big city, doesn't matter. Small, like mom and pop hotels all over the country, and look who the owners are. Look who's working in management. And it's interesting. You'll see that, and I'm just giving this as an example of an industry that has been completely taken over by foreign nationals. In this case, it would be people from India. In particular, certain groups from India. It's very specific. It's like, the Patels, certain groups within the Hindu Indian caste system have taken up whole industries, and the same can be applied to like the donut shops in the Western country, in the Western states in California, and how, I forget which Asian country or which Asian ethnicity has taken those over. But it's interesting to see. And then it's not just these small, it's like, larger corporations like Google, and you look at these massive captains of industry type of corporations in America, and you see one after another being taken over. In the tech industry, it's largely Indians. And then again, like I said, the fact that the name Muhammad is the most popular baby name in London, not in, not in Saudi Arabia or something. I mean, that alone is insane. If you were to tell somebody that the most popular baby name in, I don't know, Qatar or whatever, some Middle Eastern country, was Steve, because so many Western white people were just coming into the country and just taking over large sections of the country, and they were the ones who were the ones all having the babies there, and the population was changing. People would be alarmed. In fact, a lot of the people in America, a lot of these are leftists today who say, "Oh, if you don't like this, you're a racist." Blah blah blah. It's nonsense. The racism charge means nothing in 2026 nowadays. But whatever. The same people who would be mad at me pointing out the fact that Muhammad is the most popular baby name in London, if the reverse was applied to Saudi Arabia and Steve was the most popular baby name in their capital city, these people would be freaking out. Like, what are you doing replacing the local population? And this is, if you are someone who is on the left or maybe sympathetic to, why are you focusing on immigrants? Is this bigotry? If you're thinking that, I want you to just apply these arguments, because you've probably heard these leftist arguments and you're maybe being influenced by them. Just reverse the countries and reverse the races and ask if that would be a problem. And just in your mind, hypothetically, would that be a problem? And a lot of these leftists would be freaking out if it was vice versa. Oh, this is colonialism. You're coming in, you're taking over. In fact, there's whole books written by leftists talking about, if I can look at European countries and cities and point out, okay, why are all the restaurants all of a foreign ethnicity, and all these buildings have signs and in a language that's foreign, and why are all the babies being named these foreign names? And I can point that out. If you do the reverse, and if you go to a foreign country, maybe one of these third world countries or Asia or something like that, and you point out, okay, the West is doing similar things, like McDonald's is taking over in some of these other, just, I'm giving you an example of Western brands and businesses that are coming in and they're taking over. Leftists have written books about how that's a bad thing, the Americanization of these other countries, and we're coming in and we're imposing our culture, we're imposing our food and our and they freak out about that, right? So all you got to do is apply it, reverse the countries, reverse the culture, reverse the ethnicities, and it's a problem to leftists and to these people who want endless immigration in America. But those same arguments are fine here. So it's what I am saying. The big picture, the takeaway here is that Western countries, the populations are being replaced. The great replacement is happening. When the most popular baby name in London is Muhammad, something is going on. And it should make you at least pause and consider, where is this agenda coming from when all the major corporations are on board with this, when the media is on board with this, and when anybody who speaks against it is, oh, you're a bigot, you're this, that, and the other. That should make you be like, concerned. Why is this a big deal? We're going to come back to the angle of the Seven Trumpets in Revelation, but why is this a big deal? It's a big deal because the unemployment rate for young working age adults, in particular young men in America and Western European nations, but let's talk about America today. This is a big deal because the unemployment rate for young American men is way too high. We do not need to be importing countless foreigners when we can't employ our own young people. That's a problem. And I don't know about you, but this channel and me, I'm going to take the side of Americans that are already here, and particularly young people, because I think young men are probably the most important demographic in America. You fix the problem of young men having unemployment that's too high, and you solve multiple issues in this country. If young men can find good jobs, then they can settle down and have families, and they will, which means the next generation will grow up with fathers, with intact families. Divorce rates will go down. And that means the morality of the country is going to go up. All these things, all these things are affected by whether or not we are replacing young men in America with foreigners or not. So if we can stop and reverse this mass immigration, we can solve countless problems in this country. So that's why this is a big deal. And that's why it's near and dear to my heart. So, and that's why I try to speak up for Gen Z, for these young men. It's not a problem. I'm doing fine. I'm worried about them. I'm worried about the young men who can't find work. And I mean, had to grow up during, COVID and all these other, I mean, one crazy crisis after another that these young men are having to grow up in. And on top of that, they can't find work. So I'm concerned about that. And that's what you're going to find represented on this channel. Okay. Big picture on immigration. Let's talk big picture on the Seven Trumpets. Without going into too much detail, let me put this on the screen for just a second. Or hold on, I'll give you the big picture first. What are the Seven Trumpets about? First of all, when you read it, don't read it literally. Please don't read it literally. I mean, the vast majority of Revelation is symbolic. How do we know this? I mean, if you want more details on this, check out my YouTube playlist, The New World Order and Bible Prophecy. I go into a bunch of details on that, but just common sense. Read Revelation 13. There's a beast that comes out of the sea with 7 heads and 10 horns. You think that's literal? I love guys like Alex Jones, but he reads this stuff. And this is describing some kind of literal thing, No, guys. When it talks about a lamb being slain in Revelation 14, for example, we know who that's talking about. That's not a literal lamb. We know that's talking about Jesus. So why would you think the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns is literal? So what does it mean? Well, you have to go to other places in Revelation and in the Bible, and it will tell you what the symbols mean. So, for example, the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, you go to Revelation chapter 17, and it tells you the heads are 7 mountains. Boom. I believe it's Revelation chapter 17, verse 9. The 7 heads are 7 mountains. Okay. So you've just been told this is a symbol for that. So it can't be literal. And then we're told that the water in verse 15, I believe it is a symbol for peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. This is symbolic. So when you're reading in the 7 trumpets, Revelation 8 through 11, and it's talking about the waters and the sea, oh, what does that mean? Well, you go into, and it depends on the context. But you go into Revelation 17, verse 15, waters are peoples, multitudes, nations. And so a lot of this stuff is symbolic. Okay, so I can't go into all the details of that right now, but I'm generally trying to give you the idea that much of this is symbolic. And so you need to understand the context and what it's talking about. All right, that's one point. So what is it talking about? I'm going to give you a basic interpretation. And this, again, this is not a detailed breakdown of the prophecies point by point. So I don't expect you to believe me because I'm not going to give you all the details. I'm just going to give you, boom, this is what it means. So if you don't agree with me, fine. That's fine. If you want to know more, I'll give you a reference on where you can study it more in the future. But generally, what the 7 trumpets of Revelation, what it's talking about, a trumpet in the Bible is a symbol of war. It's also a symbol of warning. So the most famous examples probably of trumpets in the Old Testament would be the falling of Jericho. Remember, they compassed the city. Israel walked around the city 7 days, and they would blow the trumpet. You've probably heard, children's stories, and songs about the walls of Jericho come tumbling down, right? And they would blow the trumpet, and the trumpet symbolized war, and it symbolized a warning. They would also blow the trumpet before the Day of Atonement, which in the Old Testament, the Jews understood was like a symbol of Judgment Day, the Day of Atonement. It was a feast day, it was a symbol of Judgment Day. And 10 days before they would blow the trumpet, it's a warning of something that's coming, a judgment that's coming. And war, punishment of war is also judgment, right? So Jericho, or that city, was judged and destroyed. It was judged for being wicked, and therefore it was destroyed. So you see how this idea of trumpets, judgment, a punishment, and the punishment is in the form of a war, right? You see how this all relates together. So when you see the seven trumpets, that the context is a punishment and a warning and a war that comes, and a country that's being attacked. And so this is a general idea in the Old Testament where God would use one nation to punish another nation. That's all through the Old Testament prophets. Just read the minor prophets if you question this, or read the major prophets, Isaiah and Jeremiah, and you'll see, like in Jeremiah, for example, God uses Babylon to punish Israel and for their sins. So Israel was judged. They were warned by the prophet. They didn't repent. And so God used a nation of Babylon. Babylon waged war against Israel, and that was the punishment. So a pagan nation was used to punish God's people. Okay, interesting. So in the seven trumpets, that's basically what's happening in the seven trumpets. That's basically what it is. It's punishment of particular nations. God is punishing particular nations for their corruption. So the question is, which nations? All right, we'll answer that in a second. But I want to give you another background concept here, and that is Deuteronomy chapter 28, which, if you haven't read, is a fantastic chapter. It's known as the blessings and the cursings chapter. So it's a chapter written to Israel. And basically the idea is God telling Israel through Moses, if you obey me, these are the blessings that will happen. If you disobey me, these are the curses that will happen. But a lot of people don't realize that these same principles of blessings and curses on Israel, not exactly, but generally, are a blueprint for how God deals with all nations. If you, any nation that obeys the Lord and follows his principles and is a righteous nation will be blessed. Maybe not in the exact same way as Israel, don't misunderstand me, because of course they were the chosen nation of God back then. It was different. But the blessings and the curses, if you do all these wicked things as a nation, you will be punished. The curses will come upon you. Those general principles are true for all nations. I mean, historically, you can see this. This isn't just a thing. A lot of times we read this and we think, well, these blessings and curses, these are things that it's like God's a vending machine. You do this behavior, you get this blessing. You do the bad behavior, you get this curse. And while there's some truth to that, a lot of it is the natural result of whether or not a country is doing the right thing or the wrong thing. So, for example, if a country is punishing the wicked and rewarding the righteous, that country will prosper. Give you an example today. El Salvador. Do you know that the economy of El Salvador is going through the roof? Why? The wealth of the nation's going through. The nation, El Salvador, is like building beautiful buildings and cultural centers and libraries and all this stuff. in their country right now. That country is having a economic resurgence. They're becoming more wealthy. They're being financially blessed. Why? Because the president of El Salvador decided we're not going to um, be nice to the wicked. We are going to punish the wicked, which is, according to Romans chapter 13, that is the primary um, function of human governments. That what they're supposed to do, according to Romans 13, according to the Bible, even pagan governments, they're supposed to, God has allowed them to exist because their job is to punish the wicked. And so the president of El Salvador has decided, who's a great man, he has decided we're going to punish the wicked. We're going to clean up the streets, and these gangsters who are terrorizing our streets, we're going to throw them in jail, and we're going to punish them. We are going to clean our streets up. The wicked will be punished. Because of that, crime is down. And guess what? If you live in a neighborhood, if you live in a city where businesses are not being constantly robbed and businesses are not being blackmailed by local cartels where they have to give a cut of their profit to, like the mob, right? That's how the mob used to work. If businesses don't have to spend their money bribing the local politicians and the local cartels, guess what? Now they have more money as a business to reinvest in the business to pay their workers well. Oh, the business is not being constantly robbed. That means they're not worried about buying nicer equipment to and making their business look nicer, improving it. Oh, so now they have more money for equipment and and renovating their business. That means they're going to have a nicer business, which means more customers. Oh, wait, so they're paying wages now more, they have more money to pay the wages to their workers so their workers can afford to buy things. You see how all these things are related? If the government just punishes the wicked, the economic prosperity of the country goes through the roof. So when you read Deuteronomy 28 and it talks about if you obey the Lord, you're going to get blessed in these ways, a lot of it's just a natural result. Any country can do this. Any country can do this. And you want to know why most third world countries are poor today? It's not because they're being oppressed by the white Western countries. And it's all because of that. No, no, no. It's because those countries are hopelessly corrupt. Hopelessly corrupt. And the wicked are going unpunished. They're being ran by a bunch of cartels and the wicked are being unpunished. Look at a country like Haiti. Who's running Haiti? Drug lords. There's the problem with Haiti. It's not because the people are too dumb or anything. It's not anything like genetics, racist people will come and attack Haiti because of, no, it's not because of course, there can be some examples in history of foreign countries oppressing other countries. But that's not the main problem. The main problem is local corruption. All right, I'm not going to get too deep into that. The point is the blessings and the curses, right? Any country that is corrupt will get the natural results of that, the curses. Any country that runs things well, that does things the way it's supposed to, it runs a just society, it will be blessed. Okay, so again, let's go back to Revelation and the seven trumpets. Punishments, right? Punishments for not doing the right thing. Well, one of the punishments, and this is how the seven trumpets, we're going to connect it now to immigration. Did you know one of the punishments of the Old Testament for being a corrupt country was that foreigners would take over your country? Yeah, that's one of the punishments. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get above thee very high, and thou shalt be down very low. So the stranger, the foreigner, will rule over you. He shall lend to thee, thou shalt not lend to him. Okay, So foreigners, so according to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 43 and 44, foreigners will take over your country if you're a corrupt country. They will be in charge of you, and they will be loaning money to you instead of you to them. Now let's apply this to Western countries today. Let's talk about America. Is America a corrupt country? Just look at our legal system. Look at the politicians, and look at people like Nancy Pelosi and how much money she has made in office. And it's both sides, friends. Go look at Crenshaw. I think it's Dan Crenshaw, his name, and go look at his, or even, I'm going to step on some toes here, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Look at her stock profile and how much money that people. So it's both sides. Where politicians are making tons of money off the stock market, it sure looks like insider trading. When they're doing better, these politicians are doing better at investing than the best investors in the world, like Warren Buffett. Okay, that sounds like corruption on both sides. What about lending? America, is it a country where we lend to other? Well, yeah, of course we do a little bit. But the big picture, are we a country that lends to others, or do we borrow from other nations? Yeah, we're borrowing money from China. We couldn't run our country without borrowing money from China and from, Middle Eastern countries. And people will look at this and, oh, that's the US petrodollar. That's a good thing. No, we are massively in debt to foreign countries. That should tell you right now that there's a problem of corruption and lawlessness in America. Go look at our culture. Look at the movies. Look at the don't look at the movies, I should say. That's how corrupt our society is. The immorality that you see in our media, the divorce rates in America. Look at the out of wedlock childbirth rates in America, single family homes, and look at the skyrocketing use of porn sites and gambling sites, things like that. You want to tell me America's not a corrupt country? Look at examples of things like, you know, Daniel Perry was a man who did the right thing and was put on trial. He shouldn't have even been on trial, where the righteous are taken to court. Or, and this will step on some feathers, a man like Chauvin, Derek Chauvin, who is in jail for life right now for simply following the police manual. Why? Because a mob and the media just slandered this man. He should be released. The media went and they took pictures of this guy from one angle that made it look like his knee was on George Floyd's neck when it was on his shoulder, but actually putting your knee on the neck, it's perfectly fine in the police manual. So why is he in jail for manslaughter, or for whatever he was, the technical term? Why is he in jail for life if he's simply following the police manual? Hmm? Oh, he couldn't breathe. The guy was saying he couldn't breathe before he even got out of the car. The whole thing's a lie. And why is it that the crazed lunatic who murdered Irina, what was that, in North Carolina, Zaruska? I'm sure I'm mispronouncing her name. I apologize. It just came out that he does not have to stand trial by reason of insanity. That is a corrupt legal system. That is a corrupt legal system. Okay, the politicians are corrupt. The morality is corrupt. The legal system's corrupt. You don't think this country's going to be punished? And what are the punishments? I just read them to you in Deuteronomy 28. One of the punishments is foreigners are going to run your country. Okay, so let's take this back to Revelation and the seven trumpets. You guys are seeing where I'm connecting this? Corrupt countries get overran by foreigners, and wars take them over. All right. All right. Let me check the comments here. Oh, he likes it. All right. I appreciate that. Um, you know, and I speak against this again. I speak on this subject because I'm worried about the young men in this country being replaced by foreigners. And it doesn't matter what ethnicity you are, it does to some degree. I will say this: America's a white country. And I was raised in a Mexican community. I'm half Hispanic. America's a white country. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I've said this before. It's okay that Japan's a Japanese country. It's okay that Mexico's a Mexican country. America's a white country. Do you know that America in the next few decades is going to no longer be a white majority country? That is a problem. That is an attack on white people. That's a problem. If that was happening in India or Mexico or in some brown country, it would be we'd be screaming about it, right? Or leftists would be screaming about it. But because it's happening to white people, it's okay. That's I'm sorry, I can't agree. I cannot agree with that. Speak up against oppression no matter who it's affecting, right? All right. Let's get back to the Seven Trumpets. You get the big picture for now. You get the big picture. I'm going to put something on the screen. And I'll only do this briefly because I know on Instagram it messes up the screen because it's in a vertical view and it's not going to look good on Instagram, but it'll be fine for the rest of you. Okay, let me put this on the screen. This is a quote from Encyclopedia Brittanica. And now we're going to get into the interpretation of the Seven Trumpets. And by the way, if you want to know more details on this, I'll put the link to this website on the YouTube channel. This is from a guy named Eugene Pruitt, who is one of my favorites on Bible interpretation. Highly recommend the guy. Very deep stuff though. If you don't know the basics of Bible prophecy, he's gonna shock you. But that's my little warning. It is what it is. Maybe you need to be shocked. But anyway, go to his website, BibleDoc. That's BibleDoc.org. If you do a search on the Seven Trumpets on that website, or do an internet search with that website and the Seven Trumpets, you will find this article. It'll go through trumpet by trumpet, verse by verse. So that'll help you if you want the details. But I'm going to give you the basic overview for now. Here's a quote from Encyclopedia Brittanica on the screen there. And what it's talking about is how the Roman Empire was attacked by foreign countries, by foreigners, the barbarians, Germanic peoples, it calls them. It was barbarians. Is that's the technical term, by the way. You hear me say barbarian, you think I'm just insulting them. No, that was a group of people. That's where the word comes from, barbar. And they were called barbarians because the way that they talked to the Romans, it sounded like they were saying bar. So they couldn't understand, so they would call them barbarians. That's where the term comes from. And it was various groups, the Visigoths and various Gothic groups, Germanic peoples from the north, coming from like Scandinavian countries, and they would come down into the Roman Empire. This is where you get guys like Attilla the Hun. You've probably heard of Attilla the Hun. He's famously like the model for who's the guy on Star Wars, the big the big fat alien dude on Star Wars. You know what I'm talking about. Looks like a giant fat slug. I forget the name from like the early like 70s Star Wars. You know what I'm talking about. He got Princess Leia in a somebody say it in the comments because it's blanking on me right now. He had Princess Leia like in a chain. You know what I'm talking about, right? But Attila the Hun, you've probably heard of Attila the Hun. He's one of these like barbarian tribes. And those groups attack the Roman Empire. And this quote from Encyclopedia Brittanica talks about how they came in 3 major waves in history to attack the Roman Empire. And that is basically what led to the downfall of the Roman Empire were these waves of barbarian attacks from Gothic Germanic peoples, including Attilla the Hun and other people. All right, I'm gonna take this off the screen so my Instagram people are not like, this looks terrible. Okay, go back here. Oops, add that back to the stage. Okay, so I'll read this to you, some of it. The barbarian invasions were among the most monumental phenomena of the later empire. The European provinces of the Roman Empire were subjected to not only innumerable small raids, but also three major waves of attacks by the Germanic peoples of the north. Okay, barbarian invasions. This is from Encyclopedia Brittanica, volume 19, page 542. The article on the Roman history, 1966. Okay. What I am suggesting here is that historical fact that the Roman Empire was attacked in three major waves, those basically were the first three trumpets of Revelation chapters 8 through 11. The first three trumpets were the three major waves of invasion on the Roman Empire. So now we're bringing this full picture. What were the seven trumpets? It was warnings about a war and a punishment that was coming on particular nations for their corruption. In particular, foreign nations flooding into and then attacking those countries that are being punished, those empires that were being punished. Well, who were the empires? The two empires that are largely discussed throughout Revelation, by the way, probably the majority of the book, at least the first half of it. The two empires that are talked about the most is the Roman Empire and what is referred to as like the Holy Roman Empire, or basically the reign of the Catholic Church, which was the dominant institution in Europe throughout the Middle Ages. And basically what Revelation, the Seven Trumpets, is discussing is judgment on those two empires. That's not, I don't know. That's it. Okay. That's what it's talking about. That's the big picture. And so the first three trumpets are the Roman Empire is being judged for its sins. And here's how. Here are the nations that God used to attack them. Foreigners flooded their country and then attacked them. Okay, let's look at a little bit more details of these attacks. And we'll see how this relates to immigration in a second. So there was three different waves. Let's see here. The first wave, the first major assault came from the Visigoths. Again, I'm quoting from the Encyclopedia Brittanica. The second was from the Vandals. And then the last, so the third wave came from, followed the collapse of the empire of Attilla the Hun and his sons. Okay, so those are the three major attacks. Again, first one's the Goths, the Visigoths. The second one, the Vandals. That's where you get the word vandalism, because they pillaged the Roman Empire. That's what, a vandal is someone who robs you, right? That's where the word comes from. And then the third one came after Attila the Hun and his sons. They fell, or their empire fell, and that led to a major attack on the Roman Empire. Okay. I'll give you some quotes here on how, even in those days, the leaders of these barbarian tribes, they understood that God was using them to punish the Roman Empire for its sins. So here's a quote from the article. It says, "The next consequential series of battles waged against Rome did indeed come via the Mediterranean, generaled by Genseric." Remember that name, Genseric. Okay, he was a leader, like a king of the I think it was the Gothic people. It says he sensed his calling. He seemed to sense his calling, and he would tell his pilots, his the men who were running his ships, to let the wind, let the elements direct their ships to the coast that God was angry with. So he would literally, this is a barbarian king, and he's attacking the Roman Empire. They'd get on their ships with all their military ships, and they would be in the Mediterranean, and he would tell his generals, just let the wind carry us to whatever city God wants us to attack, because that's the city God's angry with. And they would show up and to that city, and they would come in and they would conquer it. This Roman city, this Roman area, they would just come in, attack and conquer and pillage. That was Genseric. That's what he did. He sensed his calling, and he said that. And then the same is true for Attila the Hun. Let's see if I can find the quote on that. Let's see here. Attila the Hun, he called himself the Scourge of God. So that was a name that he gave to himself. Again, he recognized that God was using him to punish the Roman Empire. So he called himself the Scourge of God. So here, this is two examples. Oh yeah, here it is. The Scourge of God. Attila knew why he was ravaging the Roman population, because God was using him to conquer, to punish the Roman Empire. So that was the main, that's the general interpretation of the seven trumpets. The first four trumpets have to do with the Roman Empire, punishments by barbarian nations. The last three trumpets, which we don't have time to go into, are punishments against the Catholic Church. And I don't know if you know the history, but the Catholic Church ran Europe, ran everything basically in Europe from about 600 or so AD to like almost 1800. Well, let's say like 1500, they started to lose power. So like 1,000 years. Surely they're gonna do some things wrong during that time. And if you look at history, they did. There were some very corrupt popes. So what were their punishments? Well, their punishments were invasion by Muslim nations. So now God used Islam and the followers, the Muslim nations, the Ottoman Empire and things like that later on, to punish the Catholic Church and the Western nations that the Catholic Church was ruling over. Okay, how does this relate to immigration? Taking it back to the first four trumpets, which is the barbarian invasions against the Roman Empire. The barbarians did not just attack from the outside. They also attacked from the inside. And again, this goes back to Deuteronomy 28, where it says that one of the punishments for being a corrupt country is that foreigners will rise up within your own country and they will lead you. By the way, who's the mayor of London today? Is a Muslim guy. He's not British. He's not a British guy. Look at this guy. Anyone can tell. You just look at him and you know that is not a British person. He is of a foreign origin, foreign ethnicity. He is of a foreign religion. That is not a British man, and yet he is running. And yet he is running the capital city in London. You can get mad at me for, oh, anybody can be British. Really? Would you say the same thing is true for, if a white Christian was running the capital city of India? Would you be like, that's a little strange? Would you be okay with that? Again, just reverse the races, reverse the countries, reverse the ethnicities, and ask, isn't that a little strange? Yeah, it is strange. The same would be true if it was, if a Mexican and I'm Mexican, by the way. So I'm not attacking Mexicans, but it would be weird if a Mexican was running Tokyo. That would just be weird. Be like, okay, that's just kind of strange. It's a Japanese country. Why is this, I don't know, a Catholic Mexican running a Japanese major city? It's weird. It should be eye raising. Okay, now look at America. Who is running probably the most important city in the country? New York City. Who's the mayor of New York City today? Mamdani. He's a foreigner. I don't care what you tell me. I don't care what his papers say. That's a foreigner. I don't care if he's been legalized, this, that, and the other. Where's he from? He's like from Uganda. And he's a Muslim from Uganda. That's a foreigner. That's a foreigner running the country. So again, one of the punishments for being a corrupt country, I'm a patriot, but I'm going to call out the sins of America because I want them to be fixed. One of the punishments for having a corrupt country is foreigners will start running your country. Bringing it back to Rome and the Seven Trumpets. The barbarians didn't just out of the blue one day start attacking the Roman Empire. No, instead, in the early days of corruption, what the Roman leaders did were they started importing the foreigners. They started bringing in the barbarians to be their laborers. Why? Why did they want foreign labor? It was cheaper, and those people had no loyalty to the empire, so they would turn a blind eye while these corrupt Roman politicians were robbing their own country. Okay. So the leaders of the country realized that if they were corrupt and if they wanted to make more money, they would hire foreigners to replace the local population, which they could pay less money. So now you're not paying the locals. What happened to the local men, by the way, if they couldn't find jobs? The birth rate plummeted because those local men couldn't find work to support families. And then it becomes a vicious cycle. Oh, they're not producing enough babies. How do we have a workforce? Well, let's import more of the people who have babies, the foreigners. Well, that means more of the locals don't have jobs. More of the men can't afford to raise a family, and so they don't start families. So the birth rate goes even lower. I just saw a news report the other day that said the birth rate in America is at a new all-time high. Same exact thing happening today. So again, back to Rome. They would import the foreign workers, the barbarians. They would use them for cheap labor. And they knew that the barbarians did not care about their own country. So while they were robbing the country, while the politicians were robbing the country blind, these foreigners, these barbarians didn't care because they had no loyalty to the country. But eventually there was so many of them that they started to take over. And then you have all the problems that come from just having a divided ethnicity country like that. When the minority becomes a majority, you're going to have a country that's not cohesive anymore. Different cultures start clashing. They're not getting along. The Romans are not happy because they're losing their jobs to these foreigners, blah, blah, blah. We see the same thing happening today, Western countries. But then when the barbarians started to attack Rome, whose loyalty do you think the barbarians who were inside Rome as the foreign workers, whose loyalty would they take? Whose side would they take during a war? They didn't care about Rome. They had loyalties to their own ethnicity. So when the foreign barbarians invaded, the barbarians who were already there were fine with them. They liked them more. Tell me you don't see the exact same thing in these protests that are happening all over American cities where well-intentioned but misled young people are waving foreign flags. Whether it's the Mexican flag or a Palestinian flag or all these foreign flags. And you ask these people, which country do you think is better? Ask these young college kids at these protests, which country is better? Mexico or America? They'll tell you, oh, we hate America. That's what they'll tell you. Oh, which country is better? Are you more loyal to Palestine or America? No, no, no. We fight. They're on the side of Palestine, right? Which, by the way, I'm taking both. I'm going after both sides. If you're waving an Israeli flag, and you're more loyal to Israel than America, that's a problem too. So don't misunderstand me. But the larger point is the loyalties of these people often are to foreign countries. Again, this is how countries that are corrupt, this is how they're punished by God. Now, first comes the flood of immigrants, and they take over, like Deuteronomy 28 says, and then eventually that country is ripped apart from the inside and eventually attacked from the outside. That is in a nutshell what is happening to Western countries and America today. In a nutshell, that's what's happening. Plain and simple, that's what's happening today. We could end it there. We can end it there. That is, and again, I didn't give you the detailed interpretation of Revelation and the Seven Trumpets, but that's the basic overview of what it is. Now, this is repeating. Why is it repeating in America? You read Revelation 13 and it'll tell you that America is a mirror image to the beast, a copy of another country. A beast in Bible prophecy is a symbol of a nation. If you didn't know that, that's Daniel chapter 7, verses 17 and 23. I won't go into which nation it's talking about today. Well, I will. I'll just tell you that particular nation it's talking about was the empire of the Holy Roman Empire, or the reign of the Catholic Church during the Middle Ages. And America is becoming a mirror image. So if we're becoming the same thing that the Catholic Empire in Europe was during the Middle Ages, we get the same punishment for following their footsteps, an invasion. If you want to know more details on that, go and watch again my playlist, The New World Order and Bible Prophecy. That's on YouTube. All right. That is, I know that was like a, opening the fire hose worth of information at you. So go and check out the details on that website I shared, which I will provide in the comments. I'll put the link in the description. The BibleDoc.org link for that article on the Seven Trumpets. And again, go watch The New World Order and Bible Prophecy, my playlist on YouTube, for more details. But again, the big picture is, I believe Western countries are being punished for their immorality and corruption. We should, and I'm only pointing these things out not because I hate America, I'm a patriot. I want these things to be fixed. But the punishment is going to come if they're not fixed, and it's coming right now. We're being flooded by foreigners, taking away the jobs of young people, which I think is a crime. It's a shame. And it's because of the corruption and the evil of our politicians. Selling the country out, importing cheap foreign labor. And again, it's a repeat of what we saw that led to the fall of the Roman Empire. And that's how these two things are related. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, this will be posted as a podcast later. Please like, share, and subscribe. This is on Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X. Following all those places, please. That really helps. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next one. And if you disagree with me fervently, let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll respond. All right. Maybe not if you're a leftist troll, but we'll see. All right. God bless, and we'll see you on the next one.